morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and today I'm here with my good friends Dan and Karen, Angel, Catherine, and Jason, and we are going to continue our discussion of the book Love Life God by Jared Hewitt. And we are in chapter 13. This is, I think, our third week talking about chapter 13. We've just been reading through sections and then discussing whatever comes to our mind while we're reading through there. So it takes us, as long as it takes us. So if you're interested in this type of discussion where we talk about books, we read and we share our thoughts and share our insights, we'd love to have you participate with us. As a matter of fact, let me just post our join link here on Facebook if I can get the chat open. It's not opening for some reason. Dan, can you see the chat under the video, the live video? You're normally on there.
Give me a minute and let me get over there. Hang on. I haven't gotten over there yet.
Okay, that's cool. All right, well, as you're listening in and you're watching, just know that there'll be a link there. Sure. Oh, wait, no, I found it. Never mind, it was at the bottom of the page. All right, so I'm posting a link there if you want to join us. And it's the same link every week. So in case you're watching in the future and this is a recording and you want to join us the next time, then you can find us by searching for Mindset Mastery Collective. And you can find us on Facebook and you can find us on YouTube. And then you can also find us at mindsetmasterycollective.com. So with that, let's go ahead and first of all, everybody jump out, introduce yourselves, and then we can jump into chapter 13.
I'm Angel Studebaker down here in South Carolina.
I'm Karen Lohoff in Mesa, Arizona.
Hey, Jason Roberts in Tampa, Florida.
And Sisek in Las Vegas, Nevada. And to answer your question, Samantha, yeah, I found a video on Facebook and yep, it's there.
Hello, it's Kat.
All right, awesome. Glad everybody could join us this morning. I always love hearing from all of you. And Catherine, just to let you know, you're remuting yourself before you finish your sentences. So you're kind of cutting yourself off today for some reason. I don't know if it's the computer delay or what. Oh, Jason's trying to join us.
Okay.
Different computer. Okay. Are you switching computers, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could let me in, I'm on my phone right now.
Okay, yeah, I just did. So you should be getting there.
Recording in
Okay,
progress.
Echo. Okay. All right, great. So, Catherine, if you want to go ahead and start reading in chapter 13, then any point when anybody has a thought that pops up, or if you just want to make notes and then we get to a certain point, we can just start discussing stuff.
Okay, so we ended last week with Jared saying that he had pretty much moved through the as above, so below concept. So he says, okay, well, I think I'm moving through that one. And Spirit says, know something else. Know what you want to know. Don't even know that you've moved through it, because in that knowing, you are still carrying around the story of what you once knew. Know only what you want. Now, we wish to further discuss these convergent energies. We previously discussed polarities, and we've shown you how everything is really one energy. The only thing that separates is perception, whether created via fear or judgment or something similar. We have discussed much of creation with you, but we've not yet discussed convergent energies because up to this point, such energy was not able to exist on a large scale. But now it is? Yes, most definitely. You hear people talk of new energy all the time, and we have told you that all energy simply is that all energy simply is. Source is. There is no new source, only source and the expansion of source. Like the law of conservation of energy, gain nothing, nothing lost, nothing gained, nothing lost. Yes, now convergent energies are energies which, through your perspective, come together to heal. They are what most people today would term miracles or the presence of God. In fact, they are simply the isness of energy. Wait, you said to heal. To heal what? To heal itself. It is the one energy coming together free of separation. It is the remembrance and experience of the perfection that has always been. Wow, that feels big. Well, you can't get any bigger than everything. No, I guess not. Consciousness on this plane has been creating polarity in its mind for so long that it has forgotten that polarity is not real. Through self-love, through the balancing of these frequencies and vibrations, the energy is coming together in a massive way right now. The old perspective, with the illusion of opposing forces, is falling away. That is what is going on right now in your world. We said earlier that people think the sky is falling. Well, in a way it is, but it is only falling because there is something so much more wonderful to be seen. In a world of opposites, better would be in relation to worse. In the new energy, the energy is coming together or converging and healing itself. As the layers of your stories fall away, the energy begins to return to its natural state of blissful neutrality, and it is becoming free to be whatever it wishes to be, which is whatever you direct. In a world where polarity was the dominant story, this could not be achieved because there would forever be a back and forth motion, good to bad, bad to good. These times are exciting. They do not have to be experienced as bad. Simply know what is going on. Everything is healing and coming into balance. Okay, on the one hand, I can say something is neither good nor bad, it just is. But sometimes I feel myself wanting to cling to my sense of righteousness. But if I understand what you're saying, as long as there is righteousness, there will be unrighteousness? Yes, the polar opposite. The two need each other in order to survive and to sustain the illusion of separateness. But when you can just know peace, you are embracing your own love, the isness of all that is, and these polarities cease to be. Wow, I'm thinking about this activist I ran into outside the local grocery store. As I was leaving, this woman asked me to sign her petition. I politely declined and walked on. She started yelling at me, "Do you want to live in a world where fill in the blank happens? We need to get those effers." With this explanation, it suddenly becomes very clear to me that she was a part of the very energy she was claiming she wanted to change, because she was focused on an adversarial us versus them scenario. Indeed. So when she can shift from let's get those B's to I choose love, she will not only see the change she wants, but be that change. Yes. Just know that whatever you send your energy toward will grow. Remember the plant in Little Shop of Horrors? Life works just like that. Whatever you feed will grow. Everything is one consciousness. You don't have to fight to push closed a door when you're afraid to keep open. Wait a minute. You don't have to fight to push closed a door you are afraid to keep open. You simply have to know that you choose to create a new door, and only that which you create will shape your reality. Politics are tricky only if you believe they are. Yes, there are global shifts coming, but shift happens every day. What people are feeling right now is a collective panic. If you can hold on to your own balance, you will not only stay unshaken in the midst of the storm, but you will put peace and stability back into the one energy, which will begin to mirror it back, which will help create a sense of peace, which will continue to perpetuate and change the exterior conditions. Kind of like inertia, things keep moving in one direction until a force acts upon them. That's not a bad way to describe it, but we would say it just is. It is whatever you decide to direct it to be. To continue with consciousness, people tend to see two sides of consciousness. They see a sort of uniform totality of consciousness, of which we are all a part, and a singular totality, which would be the individualized experience of you. Another way to put this would be, within the one are the many, and within the many you will find the one. This can be demonstrated through what you perceive as the polarity of individuality, which is simply another fractal of duality consciousness within the one. Fractal of duality? I feel like I'm in science class. What does that mean in everyday terms? We used the example earlier of a picture that comes together to form a larger picture. Oh, right, like those movie posters where they take a bunch of tiny little pictures and arrange them so that from far off they make up an entirely new larger picture. Not quite. The smaller pictures and the larger picture are both the same. Remember our conversation about holograms? Oh, so in this case, each piece of the smaller image contains the whole of the larger image. Or with regard to what you just said, we're all a part of the larger consciousness. Everyone is source energy? Yes. Your belief is that within the one, there are many. This is only true so far as you perceive it to be, like our earlier explanation about polarity. Can you see beyond the separation where you can know that all are one, and that the one is choosing an ever-growing multitude of possible experiences? You are one of those experiences, yet you are not separate at any time from any other. Creation is never ending. It is always expanding. And so within the one, there are many desires which are fulfilled in infinite ways, none better, worse, or separate from the other. As you begin to move beyond your perception of polarity, it is possible that you will begin to feel emotions or feelings that are not entirely yours, at least what you would perceive as yours. What you are feeling is the luminous presence of fear within the collective consciousness. And the paradox here is that you are part of that consciousness. Therefore, that fear is in you, but it is not of you. It is not originating from your individualized being. We've spoken to you about creation and about the effects of energy and energy within energy and vibration within vibration. What we wish to explain is that while you are individual, you are an individual made manifest from a collective desire of all that you are, which is source, and that there's never a separation from source, only an infinite choice of direction made possible by your perceived separation. I think that's plenty to chew on right now.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you were reading this last part about what you are feeling is the luminous presence of fear within the collective consciousness, and that paradox here is that you are part of that consciousness. I think that a number of us have that experience a lot where we aren't really understanding why we're having a feeling that we're having. And weird, my computer's tripping out. Sorry. It's like a lot of times I'll just have this kind of emotional feeling come over me that'll be like a stress feeling or a worried feeling, but yet I won't feel like I have any thoughts connected to it. And it's an odd feeling because then I have to think about it and I'm like, oh, what am I stressed about or what am I worried about? And then of course, then I put all kinds of things that are possibilities, which kind of takes me back to the part where he's talking or where they're talking about letting go of your story or knowing that you've moved through it, but even letting go of the idea that you know that you've moved through it, because as you're thinking about the fact that you've moved through it, then you're still in the midst of it, which is all in this like thought process in your head where, what is said, whatever you feed is going to grow. And so if you're feeding that thought process, that's, going to continue to grow rather than maybe kind of looking at this feeling as, okay, it's just a feeling. I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily have to believe that it is stress or fear or whatever, because if I feed into the idea that it's fear, then I'm adding more fear to the consciousness versus if I am just, okay, it's just this physical feeling that I'm experiencing. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is, like they keep saying, it just is. And then I'm not feeding into a fear and I'm not feeding into a stress level, or I'm not, you know, but then at the same time, it talks about how, you know, again, back to the whatever you feed will grow. If we're wanting to feed into peace and we're wanting to feed into a love consciousness, is then of course, then we need to put that out into the world. And even though maybe the mass consciousness is experiencing fear and distress and separation and all of that, is when we put out what they talk about, you know, self-love, is when we love ourselves, then we're loving the consciousness as a whole. And then that can, the more of us that are doing that, the more that will spread, even with us not necessarily trying. Because if we can feel the fear without being in the midst of the fear, not even being in the middle of anything that is fearful, then obviously we can feel love and put that out into the energy, you know, the universe, and know that without even trying, that it is going out there. Because I mean, if we can receive it, then obviously we can broadcast it. So, or we can receive, you know, that's my thought.
Oh, there's Lori. She just joined us. Um, yeah, this
Morning, Lori.
brings up just a lot of different thoughts and stuff, because it kind of, he's bringing, you know, in the book it's bringing everything together, but at the same time it kind of makes you, almost gives me that, in the best way I can put it, an otherworldly feel, I guess. Like, because there are times where I feel in tune with, you know, a lot of things going on around me, or, you know, things like that. And, you know, but other times I'll feel way kind of out of tune. And maybe that's part of what this is all about. And maybe that's part of where that perceived separation that we feel that we have, even though we aren't, because of energy, and we're all connected through the energy. And so it's really making me think about, you know, those times when I do have those weird feelings that just kind of come over me and I don't know where they come from all of a sudden. Is that part of what is really happening with, like, what they're saying right here? You know, all of a sudden, you know, you're perceiving that, but you don't know why you're perceiving it, where it's coming from. I've never looked at it that way.
Well, it makes sense because we're energetic beings, you know, vibration. If you, well, for instance, this week I was back in the hospital again, and they sent a vibration through my body, and that was able to help them detect stuff, you know. So we are, like, we have the technological capability of measuring these vibrations, of measuring the energy, you know, with all of our science and sending people to Mars and all this crazy shit that's going on. They cannot, science still cannot tell us where the electricity comes from that runs our heart. Like, you would think that would be like one of the most simplest things that they would try to figure out, right? Is like, what keeps us alive? And with all of our science, we're cloning animals, we're growing. I read an article this week where this company is making I think it was cat and dog treats that taste like mice, but they're not killing the mice. They're growing mice from cells that are, they take like a little piece of a mouse's ear, like it's almost like they um, pierce their ear, and then they take that little bit of tissue and then they grow more mouse cells, and then they're making pet food out of it so that it tastes like mice, but there's no, it's humane. So we have all this technology, and yet we still have no idea, according to science, why we're even alive. So there's so much about this world that we don't know, and I think it's incredible that, when you read a book like this, I always want to say, I almost every question that he asks of Spirit, and every time Spirit answers, I want to say, but is that, like our physical human life, or is that just from our soul and spirit perspective? Because obviously here on earth, I understand what they're saying about the the good against the bad, the heaven against the hell, the God against the devil. I understand that, moving away from that concept necessarily. But when we're talking about polarity, our bodies are magnetic. Our bodies are polarities. That's how our cells work is through polarities. Everything in our body works through polarity. So it's, sometimes I want to say, now, are we talking about our physical human bodies here, or we're just talking about our souls and spirits? Because obviously there's things that they talk about, even though they say, well, you can hold positive thoughts and your body's going to be completely healed. There's so many of us that experience quite the opposite of that. I'm sure Lori would agree with me there. Well, everybody here, because everybody's got different things that they're dealing with. And to just, always fall back on, well, your thoughts just aren't pure enough, or, you just got this block you can't get over. Like, to me, that puts so much sort of like guilt on people, or at least it does to me. Well, gosh, why can't I get my head straight? Why can't I be more pure of thought? I mean, that almost falls back to the old biblical, you're going to rot in hell kind of thing, so you can't go down that avenue. So now from a soul perspective, there's no polarity. Yeah, I totally get that, but when we're dealing with the everyday physical, and obviously like our planet has shifts and balances, and it couldn't get unbalanced if, like, there couldn't be balance without unbalanced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I think another kind of aspect of that with, if what they're saying is true, is that we are all, part of the same entity, if you will. And the majority of people have a very strong belief in, unhealthy this, that, or the other, that all these things cause all these physical problems, or, it's like recently I've been reading about, overall nutrition and how insulin affects your body, and all of the things that can go wrong because of it. And it's like, if we look at the mass consciousness when it comes to health and wellness, then how can one person just having positive thoughts change the collective consciousness? I believe that we can affect it, but we can't change it as a whole. So like what you're saying is, like, if we have people that are sitting here telling us, well, if you just have positive thoughts, you're heal yourself. But if the mass consciousness believes contradictory to that, then how can we heal ourselves completely if everything is going against us? Every other part of our consciousness as a human race is going against that, because of we are in this human experience. And that's part of the human experience, is this polarities, that was kind of just something that came up when you were talking about health and why that it could be that doesn't work. Now, if, like you said, we were just a spirit, then this would be a different conversation, because as a spirit, we don't even have the physical body, so we wouldn't manifest the physical unpleasant things. So, and in a lot of ways, I look at what they're talking about of, things just are, or, it just is, versus being good or bad or right or wrong, etc. And as much as we may want to not experience the unpleasantness, it's still there. And if we were, I kind of lost my train of thought, what direction I was going with that. It's like almost like a numbness feeling, like if we didn't have the polarities, then would we even be experiencing human existence? Because then it would just be like, I don't know, neutral. And neutral isn't good or bad, or isn't feeling up or down or anything. It's just blah, right? Not neither or, I guess.
Well, I think also going back to a little bit what you were saying just a minute ago about the collective conscious, and if you think of and look at all the just jointed energies out there from different areas within the whole world of different mindsets and different thoughts about things, and how everything's all competing, that also too, I think, is what augments our disjointedness and the sense, because like it says in the book, you can't have the polarity without unpolarity, and the both sides of it. And so even within our own things, even though we might be trying to get to that kind of level spot or whatever, but because of all the other things out there that in the collective are fighting for, I don't want to use existence, but fighting for, and I don't want to say superiority but just, I don't even know how to put it, because for every action you have that equal and opposite reaction, so it's almost like, until, like the book saying, until everybody gets to that level point, we're always going to feel that disjointedness, and we're all going to want to try and find our own level, like baseline space, but I don't think we'll ever find it, because of so much stuff out there that we have to push, that we're trying to push back against, to try and bring our equilibrium. And so therefore out there in the main consciousness, I don't think that's going to happen for a long time, until everybody gets on the same page, I guess. That's kind of how I see it. And I still have to deal with, what I'm going on, with what's going on in my life, and do my best to get myself to that, baseline level of what allows me to not fight, but to be, I guess, one with the consciousness, or for lack of a better way of saying it, or be able to continue putting out that positive energy that is really needed, but it's so hard to maintain. I don't know how else to finish out my thought, but that's where I'm headed.
I had an interesting experience this week. When I came back to my original apartment, I couldn't find my TV, and I wondered about that, and eventually recognized it in the back of my closet facing the wall on an upper shelf where I couldn't get it myself. And because of that, I missed seeing the I guess the dramatic part of the evacuation of the Afghans from Afghanistan, and heard about the cargo plane, heard about the hanging off of it from several parties, and just what clearly was a very, very fearful situation. I could only imagine the crowds of people experiencing immense fear, not only for themselves, but for babies and for, loved ones and so on. And so while this part of the chapter is being read and talking about fear, I thought about how could there have been self-love applied, someone experiencing love for others, and kind of being a polar opposite to that whole thing. And I thought about how the pilot was described as saying, my orders are to do one thing, and I'm going to go ahead and take this plane on out. And I thought, could I amass that sense of feeling self-love and, essentially kind of swelling to, to be on a par with all of that fear, and moving what was required to do that. And for me, that kind of symbolizes, a way of being in the midst of fear. I think, as you look at the news and you look at the fires and you look at the drownings and you look at the water flowing. I mean, we have homes around here that have been destroyed, and we have fires that have, taken out so many homes in California, all that kind of thing. And thanks, Ivan. And we just have a lot to consider in a particular scene that we might find ourselves. Do we want to be on the fear end of things with that story, or do we want to find somehow a self-love and a loving view? When they talk about perspective and how it's all individual, and they said something else in this chapter that kind of surprised me about how we need to look at perspective. We really are exploring in this book other ways of considering things. Just the fact of considering self-love, I am self-love. I mean, that's still is difficult for me to relate to. And so I do find it helpful to think about this this pilot. I'm sure he wasn't barrel chested, but just to think of him, with all this crowd and all this view of so many people clamoring to be able to sit there and think about what he needed to do to get that plane up and going, to focus on. I'm sure he didn't say I'm self-love, but yet on the other hand, I think he maybe did think about, I am self-love, and love is what is needed here.
I had a thought when you were talking about that, kind of a correlation between what we were talking about previously, our health and the collective consciousness. And, there's this idea, like Catherine was saying, of if we just say, we just have happy thoughts, all will be well within our body. But yet, as a collective consciousness, we're having a different experience. And I was thinking about that pilot that you were talking about, Karen, and this kind of thought process is if that whole event was like his body, and he could see that he has this, obviously there's all these things going wrong in his body, and yet he still was moving forward with a positive, like you were saying, maybe it was self-love, maybe it was self-preservation, maybe it was just, I can only do what I can do. And kind of like just like a correlation between the two. We can only do what we can do. And we've got to work towards doing the best that we can in the situation that we're provided. And that can be the same, for our health and for our mental health, and in all situations in life. I mean, any kind of time that we're presented with a problem, whether it's health or whether it's in our life, is that we have to face that issue and work with it in the best way that we can. And maybe saying self-love is just one tiny little thing that we can do to improve a situation, or improve just our overall outlook of the world and everything. And if we can make one little change, then we can, potentially ripple that out into the rest of the world. Just like we could, if we're just trying to make one little change in our body, nutrition wise, that can ripple out into the rest of our body health wise. But another thing that kind of popped up when we were talking is, earlier in the book, it's talking, I'm looking at my notes here. Early in the book, or in this chapter, it was talking about this kind of big shift that they're saying is kind of coming soon. And yet, if we're looking from a spiritual perspective, soon could be thousands of years. We don't know. We have no idea. But my thought is if this shift from polarities to kind of neutrality, if you will, happens, would human existence end? Because human existence is polarities on both ways. Like, in order to be in this body, in this human form, it's all about polarities: up, down, black, white, right, left, pain, pleasure. I mean, that's what human existence is polarities. And even though we all have kind of or I feel like most of us have this kind of like driving desire for peace and calm and happy, and even though we have that, we also are a human, and we are having this experience as a human, and maybe we don't necessarily want it to end yet. And so that's why we're wallowing in our humanness. Because if we were to all get to the point where we were all completely neutral with everything and there was no opposites per se, then like what Catherine was saying earlier on, our bodies, that's how they function. That's how it all works. And if we are all just energy in some way, or our human definition of energy, and yet we are also a spiritual being choosing to be here in one aspect or another, if we chose as a collective consciousness that it is just is, and that it just are, and that it's not right or wrong or up or down or black or white or pain or pleasure, if it's not any of those and we're just in that neutral, then are we back at being spiritual beings and human existence doesn't even happen anymore? Just a thought.
I kind of think you have it there a little bit. And I also wanted to throw something out. This is kind of on the converse side of what you were saying, because this was just hitting me. Because based on what I'm gathering out of the book and what it's saying about the, energy and consciousness, and that we're all part of it. And maybe part of our problem with that is maybe in the polarity, we don't realize that it really is that simple as having that our energy, and that I am self-love really is the true gateway to that. And getting to that, like base level or whatever. And that, how do we know that? Because I think we're looking at it from perception, from how we see the polarity, the pain, the ups, down, all that. But, how do we know that if we don't push there, and how that by our energy and being part of source, that we, work towards back that, how we can affect it. And that may be our energy and our source of what, that connection is. Maybe there's more to it and we have more energy there than we realize to put back out to help equalize things. And we just don't see it, or we're too afraid to acknowledge it. And so therefore we remain where we're at. And that's, kind of on the other side, would we really truly cease to exist? Or, do we really know? I think that's part of the other question you got to ask is, I don't know anybody that's gotten there, that, or maybe in death, in a sense, maybe that's where you do get back to that, full connectedness and back into that balance. And until we're accept that, or at that state, or that part of our energy moves from here to that state, maybe that might be one aspect of it. I don't know, but I just had to look at it from kind of, I tend to always look at both sides and tend to draw out sometimes the advocate side, the devil's advocate side of things sometimes, because I think people forget sometimes to push out and try and look at it from that other side sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying and what you're speaking about there too, Samantha. And in regards to the polarities, like Catherine was saying, in our physical world, it's almost like trying to tiptoe through a very completely still puddle without making any waves. Trying to exist without making any waves. I mean, even if you were to stand completely still in a puddle of water, your heartbeat would create some vibration too, and we can't even stop that. Like you said, without ceasing to exist, ceasing to live. But what if like what they're touching on here is like two different things. What if there's the physical part of living, but then there's also the consciousness? And what if the natural state of our consciousness is the self-love? And so that without all this diverging or converging energies, these polarities, that without all that, it will come back to its own neutrality, to its natural state of self-love. And so that it's not about trying to affect the change, but just allowing ourselves to come back to this state of self-love. We're not forcing a change where, like what you're saying, Dan, with equal and opposite reaction, we're not creating a reaction. We're almost like not reacting, but allowing this being of self-love, which is our kind of ground zero, kind of our center point or our base, or the natural state of things, of our consciousness. It may not be the natural state of our physical beings, because our physical beings in this depend on a polarity of energies, but our consciousness, on the other hand, perhaps that's what the self-love is, the neutrality of that. I just wanted to put that out there.
My experience in communicating with people who have given up their human bodies is that I hate to use the word people, souls, I guess, are neutral. Spirit is neutral. Angels are neutral. Like everybody that I communicate with, once they transition out of the human body, is neutral. And I say that because the messages, like if I ask questions and just the way they respond to me, and knowing people like my grandmother, for instance, who basically had one emotion, which was anger. She's much different on the other side since she's passed. She had extremely strong, racist viewpoints and things when she was here in human form. She doesn't have that anymore. So I would definitely agree that once we give up these human bodies, now whether that's, maybe when we're in our bodies, we're so vibrationally connected that like we were saying before, you pick up on everybody else, and so it's hard to even tell what's yours and what's somebody else's. But and maybe once we leave this suit, this human suit, then we're still part of the vibration, but we're part of the larger vibration, which is the neutral one. And I don't know, at the rate, I hate to say it, guys, but at the rate that people are leaving this world, if you look around the world and see how many people are exiting right now, maybe that's the big shift. That like we're all shifting to the other side, and that's why it's all going to be neutral, because we're going to get our heaven on earth, just not the way we quite expected, which is pretty typical in my experience of, what we kind of expect and what actually shows up is two different things.
That's a good point, Catherine. And, and then I guess the ones that are coming in new, they're like, oh, well, I'm not done with this yet. I still want some more of this humanness, whatever it adds up to. And we just keep on coming back and doing it again like a roller coaster, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting though. I mean, that kind of concept of, if spiritual is neutral and human experience is all polarized and we choose or we feel, I don't know, I feel like a lot of times I'm just like, God, I'm so over this shit, I just want to get back to the even keel. And every time we seem like it gets there, then it just goes right back into the roller coaster ride. And it's just like, geez, is it because I believe that that's what's going to happen and that's what happens, or is it just this is the human experience, is the roller coaster, and I've chosen to be here, and this is my adventure, and and who is it? There's that one guy, Matt Kahn, I think it is, that talks about embracing the whatever it is, if you're anger, be the best angry person you can be, or if you're frustrated, be the most frustrated, just embrace it with love. And that's part of the human experience. I don't know, do you guys know who I'm talking about? I'm not sure if it's Matt Kahn. It seems like there was one of them. Karen, it seems like maybe you brought that person up at some point. It was somebody on YouTube. It's been a while since that was that person, but it just seems like, yeah, rather than judging and rather than being, love what arises. Yeah, something like that. And I just thought that was funny. I mean, if we are human and this is our human experience, why not just embrace it, whatever it is, and just live and love in the chaos, and rather than arguing and fighting and being, fighting against it. I don't know. But
Maybe that's part of it.
yeah.
Self-love and accepting the chaos, and just be self-love in the chaos and
Yeah.
just go with it.
Right. What would that look like? I mean, what would that look like? Anger comes up because of this, that, or the other. And I tend to have this automatic kind of feeling of, oh, okay, I shouldn't be angry or shouldn't be whatever. And, I need to fix this thing about myself that's causing myself discomfort. But maybe if I just embrace it, yeah, kind of like surrender. Exactly, Catherine. Surrender to whatever it is. Would it feel the same? I mean, even with anger or frustration or whatever, it was like when I had to get back in the truck because we lost our driver. I was so angry about that and frustrated and everything else. And then I'm just like, okay, I just got to try and embrace this. And what does it become? But, at the same time, am I judging myself for being angry and frustrated and trying to fix what I'm upset about? Or can I, I don't know. Jeff,
That's what I see. That's what I
Well,
think. It's like there's a physical, and then there's the consciousness part of it. Where we react to the physical outside world, but we have this consciousness, which we have control of our consciousness, and we have this awareness of when we take on these energies that aren't necessarily ours, and we can figure out where they're coming from, and then we can kind of go with the flow, or we can be these like a breaker for it that will stops that energy from perpetuating back out into the physical world to manifest in some other way or in some other person. But each of us, if everyone in the world were to suddenly just focus on just themselves being self-love and not and would that negate all the negative energy? Would that allow convert these converging energies to calm, and for the global consciousness and what they're talking about, that healing that was happening, to go ahead and to happen faster, but it seems to me we want to have this effect on our outside world so badly, but where our focus needs to be is within ourselves. And so in a way we are trying to remain neutral within the chaos, but and that neutrality is not a complete neutral. It's a self-love, which to me that's more of a positive. But if that's the natural state of things, then neutrality isn't so bad, I think.
Yeah.
we exist in that.
I was gonna say, going back to what you were saying, Samantha, like when you were upset about, losing the driver and stuff, and you were really, I'll be honest, there have been times where, and I said this one time to somebody where they did something and said something, and I was really mad about something, and somebody said something, and I just looked at them and said, "You just really ruined my being mad right now, but I'm gonna be mad still because I'm in that moment. I'm in, kind of going back to being that, best mad or, love what arises and be in that moment." And a few times I've just done that. I've just like, I'm mad. I'm going to be in it. I'm going to, stay in it for a little bit because right now that's where I'm at. And instead of like I normally do, I tend to, let my brain work through and calm and said, okay, really, this is the best, just it is what it is. Okay, move on, be done and over and move on. But I've learned sometimes where, if sometimes I just need to really be in that moment, whether it's mad, sad, irritated, whatever, and let myself go through that and get through that negative polarity or not. But then when I come on the other side, sometimes I come out more better or more free in a sense to where I can move on rather than just saying, okay, this is not that bad. I just got to deal with it, and move on. And, it is what it is. I can't change it and stuff like that. And, but, sometimes I think we all need to allow ourselves that ability to do that sometimes. Just even, and for me, I think it's sometimes is that it's a balance. It brings back a weird balance sometimes when I just allow myself to, because then when I'm done and over it, I'm usually just done and over it. And it doesn't stay in my brain, even though in my brain, I'm like, okay, just move on. And I kind of move on, but still in the back recesses, it's still kind of there. But if I just really work through it, get through it, do it, allow it to do its thing, I move on better sometimes. And I'm wondering if that, if that's a little bit of self-love, because to me, in a way, it's a weird way of saying self-love, but it's allowing myself that love and ability to just be in that moment and go through it and get done and over it and then move on.
Yeah, like recognizing your feelings and just going ahead and allowing yourself to experience those. As long as you're not perpetuating them back out into the world, but you're just trying to experience them and give yourself these, the validity, give the, value to, hey, I've been hurt or I'm frustrated for a reason. I'm not just going to discard that and feel like defeated because I'm not supposed to experience that emotion, but to go through it and then come out on the other side and kind of grow from that. I totally get that, Dan. That's makes sense to me.
That's why Matt, excuse me, that's why Matt Kahn says embrace everything, because that is absolutely an act of self-love. Because if you're having an emotion and you're judging yourself enough to cut that emotion off, that is not self-love. And oftentimes, and I don't know who these people are that measure these things, and I don't know how all that works, but there's this chart that supposedly these different emotions have different vibrations and frequencies. And supposedly anger is like a level up from despair. So anger is actually a good thing to have, because usually if you're angry about something, it's because you were previously in despair about something, or you see something maybe even happening to somebody else, like this whole thing going on with trying to get people out of, you know, unsafe conditions with the Taliban and all that. You know, we see that, and whether we recognize it or not, you know, I think we feel that fear and that despair and that lack of hope and all of that those people, not to the degree that they're feeling it, but I mean, we as human beings, we see that on TV, and I feel it in my physical body. I'm sure all of you, everybody does. You feel that despair, that lack of hope, that oh my God, you know, I'm going to die if you leave me here. We feel that. And then because our spirits and our bodies know that's a dangerous vibration right there. Lack of hope is one of the worst, lowest vibrations you can have, and that leads to death. The lower your vibration gets, we automatically, you know, jump into the next highest vibration or frequency, which is anger, and we get angry over that situation. So anger can be an extremely important and life-saving tool. And I think we know that as energetic beings, and it happens kind of as a natural response. But then as human beings, because we've been taught from day one, you're not allowed to be angry, you know, not looking at the energetic aspect of it at all, but just the, you know, when people get angry, they do stuff that hurts other people. So you're not allowed to do that kind of thing. So then we try to shut that off, and that sends us back down into that loss of hope and that despair situation. So, you know, I think we're very self-preserving, even when we don't recognize it. And thou shalt not judge, I think, is foremost. You know, I think we tend to judge ourselves. We're our own worst judges all the time. And we have to look at it from that larger perspective, which is what this book has obviously been trying to get us to do all the time. Look at it from that larger perspective, that every one of those emotions is extremely important, and we shouldn't judge ourselves for having them. So it's absolutely self-love, Dan.
I appreciate what you all were saying, to not have hope. Also, I love Matt Kahn, and he says, oh, I hate it when I get on here and I lose track of what I wanted to say. That with all that is going on in the world, you can't take on the whole world. That we all have some idea of how life could be or should be or whatever. It's hard not to lose hope. And pretty much at this point, I'm like, if the atomic bomb goes up, I'm running towards it, not be here afterwards and clean up the mess. It's not a death wish or whatever, because I still love life and enjoy, even with all of my challenges. Yeah, you have to have hope, and I'll come back.
Anybody
I-
else have? Oh, good, Dan, go ahead.
Well, I'll jump out. I was going to jump out and say, I think you just help remind us all of how, you know, when we think that we're at the end of our rope, and then, looking at people like you or people like in Afghanistan or in other places, you know, hope is that one thing that, really, I think it can be the catalyst to helping us keep ourselves going back to self-love, and to, and putting that out there for ourselves as well as for other people, and to have that ripple effect out there in the consciousness, and, and like I said, the polarity. So when, we see that going on, and then so many people in the world are seeing and watching things like that go on, and the energy in the heart and what people put back out towards that, I think is what helps sustain hope, and that it will get better, and that they will, get to where they need to be, or things will get done that need to get done.
Well, we are a little ways past the hour, so unless everybody has a final thought they want to add, we probably should be wrapping up. Anyone have anything else?
This last chapter really has
The only
thrown
thing
a lot, and we're all, I think, got so much to say, because it's taking us a while to get through it.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, just try to, and I do this. I'm talking to myself when I say this. Try to recognize and acknowledge how much energy you spend on a daily basis fighting reality. Like reality is what it is, and we spend so much of our energy trying to make it something that it's not when it is. So it's kind of you can save a lot of energy when you stop fighting what is and accept it, and move forward on whatever level you can move forward at the time. If if you're hitting roadblocks in this area or this area or that area or all the areas, there's still one open door somewhere, and at some point, rather than fighting, because that just adds to that energy that you're fighting, whatever you're fighting against, like this chapter and many other chapters have pointed out, you have to accept that that's what's happening right now there, and then look for that open door, because there's always an open door, even if it's the open door to the other world, it's there. So just try to recognize how much energy you spend fighting against what is. It's not like you can just instantly change what is. I mean, you can in your own little mind, and you can live in a fantasy world all you want, but denial never really got most people too far. So acceptance and surrender, but not acceptance and surrender and just sinking into a hole of despair, but acceptance and surrender and moving forward through the next door. Love you guys.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that, Catherine. Thank you for reading. I'd just like to add that those doors don't always show up and look the way that we think they should. And so when you have a situation like maybe with like what Samantha was saying with her driver not showing up, perhaps there was opportunity within that. And it seems that there's always some opportunity when things aren't looking this, where we want it to be or going the way we want it to go. Be open to those opportunities. I do believe if you continue to focus on what you want, allow yourself to come back to that neutral state of self-love and consistently pursue the things you want, you will achieve the things that you consistently pursue. So, stay positive and have a great weekend, guys.
Yeah, we fight against, or we make ourselves miserable by fighting against what is more often than not, and by judging it for being what it is. And, but yet if we can accept it as it is, we may not like as it is, but if we can accept it as it is and we can move forward, we can work with what we've got to work with. And then, if we just change the way we think about it, then that changes how we feel about it. And that's kind of the biggest thing right there, is that, if we stay stuck in this, fighting against it, or, telling us why it's so difficult, and why it's unfair, or why it shouldn't be this way, or whatever it is what we're telling ourselves, then we're only causing ourselves more discomfort and more pain. And we just take our situation and realize, okay, this is what it is. I can't change this for whatever reason, or maybe I can't change it. Maybe I can. Maybe there's another option. I can choose something different, or recognize that the change that I would have to make is not something I want to live with. That's a part of it too, is because, I can look at this whole driver situation and be like, okay, right now I have to get back in the truck. Well, I could choose not to get back in the truck and not earn the money from the truck and not make the payments on the truck. I can choose that, but that's a choice. I can recognize that is a choice that I could make, but I'm choosing not to make that choice. I'm choosing that this is the direction I want to go, regardless of the current situation. And so therefore I am in control, even though it felt like there for a moment that I had lost kind of control of the situation, if you will, and it wasn't going in the direction I wanted it to go. So now it is what it is. I've made a choice to move forward in a different way, and I can let go of this anger and frustration by just changing my thoughts about it. I can choose that, okay, I'm just going to love what is, if you will, and work with what I've got and move forward from there. And rather than wallowing in my upsetness and frustration and anger, even though I can embrace that in the moment and just be angry, but as soon as I embrace that anger in the moment and I just am like, I'm just as angry as I can be, then it just seems silly, and then I'm not as angry anymore. So, but when I'm angry and then I'm mad at myself for being angry, then I'm more angry, and then I'm more angry at myself for being angry, and then I'm just wallowing in that anger, right? So I don't know. What's the situation you're dealing with right now? What are you frustrated with? What are you aggravated with? What are you mad that isn't the way you want it to be? And what are your choices? What are those doors? Like Catherine was saying, I mean, there's always the exit door. Any one of us could choose the exit door at any point in time, but we choose not to. We choose to stay here and do this thing. So what are other doors that are available to us, and why aren't we choosing them? Because that's a big thing right there too, is that we can see the doors, but we're not choosing them because fill in the blank. I'm not choosing this because this is a greater evil than this other lesser evil that I am choosing, then all of a sudden we're in control of our situation, even though we think we're not, we really are. And we're choosing to be where we are in this moment right here and right now. And we are creating, as it says in the book, we are our own creators. So we are creating this situation that we're in right here and right now. Even though we think we aren't, we really are, because we're choosing this path that we're on in this moment. So that's a lot to absorb. I'm not even sure if I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, everybody take it with a grain of salt and, you know, learn from it what you can. And, you know, who knows? We all are just out here spewing all this information that may or may not be relevant. Maybe it is to you and maybe it isn't to me, who knows? But if you'd like to participate in this and you'd like to add your thoughts into our jumble of information that makes us all think deeper thoughts and explore our own psyche and explore the possibilities of spiritual everything, then we'd love to have you. You can find us by searching for Mindset Mastery Collective or go to mindsetmasterycollective.com, or you can find us on Facebook. And if you're watching this as a recording, it's probably on YouTube. So there'll be links below where you can hop in and join us. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week. And we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.